All right. Hi, aloha, and welcome to Mystic Monday. I assume it's going to take a minute for some people to get on, but we are going to have some questions that were sent to me. I have some questions. You always have questions.
Always.
We're good at answering questions.
And if you see me looking down, I'll try to monitor the chat feed so that if you do have questions or if anything pulls or, pops in, we can.
Okay, perfect.
Those as they come in.
And also me. If you see me looking down, I have some that I got via email and Facebook for some people who couldn't join us live today. So we'll see if we can answer their questions as well. So, but we want to talk about the energy. Yeah. How do you feel like the energy has gone this week for you? Because I did an energy report, and two of the things that I really am not excited about is one is the sleep deprivation, and then two is the weird dreams. And I mean weird dreams. But the sleep deprivation part, I remember waking up last week going, oh no, this is because I can tell immediately once it shifts. And I'm just like, great, here we go. So then I have to check with my guides and check and see how long it's going to last and that whole thing. But how has your week been?
I mean, technically I've been sleeping, but it doesn't feel like it.
Well, and it can and will affect all people differently. So when we get into these energy waves, where we're dealing with a thinner veil, I guess I would say, that is what's really causing problems this week is the thinner veil. And it will go into next week as well. But when the veil begins to thin, it causes us to be able to feel the energy from the other side as it becomes a lot more intense or accessible. So there are two good things that could potentially happen. One is, well, I don't know if people would think this was good, but I always think it's kind of fun and good. The spirit activity is going to be on the higher side. That's one. And then now would be a good time to tune into your gifts and work with pulling any manifestation energy in, working with spirit connection, like if you want to work with spirit communication, when you want to work with your psychic senses, anything of that nature, when the veil is thinner, it's always a good time to work within that realm. On the flip side of that, a lot of times if you already do that, such as myself, it will cause a lot of disruption in your sleep, and or if you're connected in with that spiritual energy, or if you're prone as like an empath to feel a disruption in the energetic force, we'll just call it, if you are prone to feeling disruption, then that can happen. If you're balanced and grounded and whatnot, it doesn't mean that if you're not being affected and you're sleeping well, it doesn't mean that you're not connected in. Some people are just more sensitive. And I've just never been a strong sleeper. So there's that. I haven't slept well since I had children. We'll just say that. And my children are old at this point. So it's like, when's that going to go away?
My excuse is a puppy. So
you got that.
I wake up earlier than I want to.
So yes, we're going to have a thinner veil. The energy is feeling a little chaotic though. So with this chaotic energy, and we talked about, I would like you to pull some cards for us.
Yeah.
For the people so that we can see what the cards also have to say. But with this chaotic energy, it's going to feel like you might have an issue, then it gets resolved. You might have an issue, then it gets resolved. It's very feeling like bumpy. The road is going to feel bumpy. And you might even notice with some people who are tuned into this energy, might even notice that their moods do that a little bit, where they're like, oh, I'm having a pretty good day. And then they're like, I feel a little irritated. Oh, I'm having a pretty good day, feeling a little irritated. Just it's going to be very up, down, along with the thinning of the veil. So we have that to look forward to. Also, for some reason, it's tending to affect like electronic type devices as if we were in Mercury retrograde, which is interesting because you also brought up the solar flares.
Yeah.
So, and it's not just like electronic devices like, okay, this web page won't load or my computer's not working, but you may find, weirdly enough, that since about last week, random appliances might have a mind of their own, or mechanical things maybe like are kind of either working all of a sudden or not working all of a sudden very randomly. So that's always fun. Not really, only if they're on the working aspect. So what does your card say?
Okay, so I pulled 2 cards. This is the deck that I've really been loving. It's like the Sacred Forest.
That's a good one.
So it's funny that you should say. So the first one is the Forest Symbol, enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
So you talking about the veil thinning, being able to access more information. And then the other one that I pulled is fire, spirit, energy.
Solar flares, spirit energy. There you go.
Very spot on. Overall, I felt, and maybe this is just kind of like a rocky start, a rough start. I feel like May overall is really positive. Because I feel like April was a little bit rougher maybe than everybody would have liked it to be, and maybe we're just coming out of that. Would you agree? Like I think
astrologically I absolutely will agree with that. May is going to still feel very transitional for a lot of people, whether you're in a career, whether you're in a relationship, whether like status, whether it doesn't matter what it is, it's going to feel very like you're in transition in May still. So May is a very good month to not get too frustrated with yourself or with the way things are going, but understand that there's transition and process. And so if you're not really stoked about where things are, that's okay, because we're still in process. If you're starting to feel better about things and how they are, that's also good, because we're in transition, moving another direction. I do feel that June through August, those are really high frequency months. I'm getting June and August in particular. So we may have a dip in July. I haven't really looked at that, but June and August are definitely very highlighted as far as energetic frequency, and probably some positive things happening in people's lives, or seeds will start to sprout. So any energetic seeds that you're planting will start to, you'll see like results of that. You'll start to see the seed grow. You'll see the plant. You'll see that, there was something to this, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So circling back to the energy card here, it said that passion is expanding in your life, and to kind of ignite that inner fire, to let the light of the creator surge through you. So that kind of like planting.
Cards agree with me. They agree with me. Weird how that happens.
It's weird how that happens. Weird was a bad word at our retreat.
It is.
We were supposed to put it was like our swear jar word.
It is the swear jar word, and I am going to get a swear jar for it for future retreats. I like to use it as a pun. You can use it as a pun. You can't use it as it's really weird. No, it's just a pun word. Okay. So that being said, how about we answer some questions, or talk about some questions that were given to us via email and or Facebook. Although for anybody who's watching this now or later, definitely drop your questions in the comments, because we will answer them. And or be prior to this coming, I usually send out a newsletter and or post it on Facebook. Post your questions below or in our podcast, because we're really trying to answer as many as we can. Yeah. And if you hear my dog, actually that's not my dog, It is my son's dog, who is a little Frenchie, who thinks he is a German Shepherd and likes to bark at all the children that just got out for school. So there's that. Anyways, one of the questions was surrounding being a mystic and wondering if we're born being a mystic. Actually, I will read it. It says, I had heard that mystics are born. How would you know if you're a mystic or not? Second question, I've met a mystic, or my mystic. Tell me the proper way to ask them how to send mystic healing energy. I'm not sure if I'm doing that right. And thank you in advance. So I thought this was a good question simply because it's called Mystic Monday. So as far as being a mystic or not, it's something that I do feel a lot of people are born with. However, I think that people don't discover this aspect of who they are until later on in life. So there could be a lot of people listening that could be in their younger years or just maybe not have gotten to that spot yet in their life. And they definitely are a mystic. They just haven't discovered that they are yet. And in order to kind of get into that a little bit more, I think that we should probably talk about what a mystic is, or what my version of a mystic is as we're talking about this question. So a mystic typically throughout history would be one that would be very connected to source or the divine. And it doesn't matter like your religion, although I think that I've heard that it was used a lot in Christianity. However, mystics have been known throughout all kinds of religions. And it would be somebody who is very at one with, source, the divine, whoever that person would be for you, wherever you would gain higher power knowledge, being able to align with that source, but also from a standpoint of questioning and receiving information, really information seeker, I guess I would say, someone who truly wants to discover all things about all things, spirituality, whatever it is. And so they seek a lot of knowledge from their creator or the divine, whoever that they align with, and then they receive that knowledge through them. But in order to do that, what kind of bridges the gap is that they are, quote unquote, at one with the divine energy or whatever. So it'd be kind of similar to a channel where you're pulling information in through the body as you merge with some type of divine energy for the purpose of gaining, receiving, or translating knowledge. Does that make sense? Did I explain that?
Yeah. For an example of like way back in the times, like an oracle too would be an example.
Yeah, exactly. That would be a good historical example. And or I think people know what channels are and things of that nature. So that would also be something along that lines. So any type of channel, oracle, things of that nature. Again, we're connecting. You become at one with their energy. You receive their energy and knowledge, and then you utilize it for your own knowledge base and or give the knowledge out. And so I do believe 100% that you're born that way because, as we'll probably get into, you are born with all your spiritual gifts. The difference between those utilizing their spirit gifts or knowing they're a mystic might just be learning how to connect in with spiritual energy at this point in their life, whatever point that may be. Because there is something to spiritual amnesia where you end up anywhere from, 8, 9, 10 to late teens, early 20s, even later, where you really embrace the physical frequency so much that you shut out any knowledge or connection that you have with the spirit realm until you circle back around to it. There are some people that maintain that connection all the way through. Some people that are very, I would say, natural at it, or their ability is just really strong because everybody's ability is different, right? So we have different gifts. We have different combinations of gifts. and we have different strengths of gifts. And before we get into talking about that part, the good way to look at it is, everybody, and I've said this a lot, has the ability to throw a ball, or most people have the ability to kick a ball, soccer ball, throw a baseball, throw a football, whatever. However, are they all going to become professional athletes or really good? Doesn't mean that you can't do it. Doesn't mean you can't utilize that skill. It just means that, will that become something that you are outstanding past the average Joe and you could literally do it for a living? We have some separation there. So there will be some people who their gifts are so strong that they will retain that information through. So like for me, I didn't lose that information. I remember it very vividly all the way through. It was never lost and refound or remembered and forgotten, whatever. I didn't have that happen. It doesn't make me better than anybody else by any means. It's just how it worked for me.
With me though, and I think we've talked about this a little bit, just you and I in the past, like I would have a lot of experiences as a young kid, but I had no idea. Like my environment, wasn't taught to me, I had no idea. I just thought I was having a lot of weird coincidences. I'm like, how did I know that was going to happen? Or like freaking myself out, of like knowing information before it happened. I'm just like, oh, that's weird, and then eventually it got to a point where I'm like, there's something more to this. And that's when I started exploring.
I think that's actually what happens to most people when they get the spiritual amnesia. If they're not voluntarily freaking themselves out and then just don't want to have anything to do with it, they're taught, you don't know what you're saying. That's an imaginary friend. You could never know that. What are you talking about? Can't see this. I mean, 118 different reasons why they cannot see anything. And so whether it's you're trained out of it, whether it's you're scared out of it, whatever that may be, it's super common. And the reason that I want to bring that up is because I don't think that you should be hard on yourself or think that you absolutely don't have the ability when you most likely do have the ability. You just have forgotten how to reach that ability. And that takes some training, which is where people like myself come in. And so your interest will usually circle back around first, where you're like, oh, I'm interested in this. I want to read everything about spirituality. I want to try these things. I want to see somebody who reads tarot. I want to see a psychic. I feel like I would be in the healing field. So that's typically how it first starts to reconnect the dots for you. And then as you travel down that path, if you get the right teachers and the right people in your life, you can then reconnect in a very deep way and redevelop your abilities and remember what it is that you were born with, what you've done in other lifetimes, things of that nature. And so I think that can be very important, just understanding that aspect. And then this second part of the question is a proper way, how to tell me the proper way to ask them how to send mystic healing energy. If you have that connection with your mystic, you just basically ask. You ask, and when you can feel them and you allow information to come through, people typically are looking for verbiage or some type of visual sign, but communication is typically done telepathically through spirit. So we will want to allow any information to just kind of come through. And I will be talking to this person a little bit more, where I will elaborate specifically on their story, but hopefully that answered that question. Did that, you think, answered that question?
Yeah.
I'm looking up another one here that we had on Facebook. We had one the other day, which me and you got into this discussion about. We were asking if anybody had any questions on your life's purpose. And then somebody had something kind of interesting that we thought we would like to answer. And it just basically says, this is a long roundabout question, but I've been listening to a lot of podcasts about NDEs. And my question I have on life purpose is related. Do you want to tell people what the NDEs are? So,
NDE would be near death experience.
correct. And so it says, my question is, are you born with life purpose? Do you plan it before you're born, or does it evolve based on your life, free will experiences, trauma, etc.? We actually discussed that aspect in the podcast, Life's Purpose. Hi, Holly. How are you? Holly's waving.
I know, I saw that.
But the next part of the question, which we thought was something good to discuss, is she's saying, I'm low-key jealous of someone having an NDE because they come back with so much information about the other side and come back with a new sense of purpose. It seems, but maybe not everyone. Personally, my life has led me into the field I love in my current occupation, and that's happened based on what I feel like is happenstance. I'm starting to get into healing, Reiki, and would like to transition this into a full-time job in a few years. Getting into Reiki came about because of trauma. So I just wonder how these things come about in one's life, and want to know why the heck some people experience NDEs and get that wealth of knowledge and have their experience at the same time while other people's walking around either experiencing trauma and all life's changes and have a spiritual experience. So like her having a trauma that led to a spiritual experience, and then somebody having an NDE, near death experience, and then having the spiritual experience, or other people just walking around just kind of lost. Now, I feel like an NDE would kind of be traumatic.
Yeah, agreed. So, I mean, that's a pretty big thing. I mean, for sure, I would say that's got to be a marker in your chart. You've planned that. Like if that, but I also kind of feel like if the goal of that NDE was to wake you up, that's kind of like a last ditch effort, right? That's kind of like fire the missile, because there's probably a lot of things that happen before that trying to like wake you up or put you on your spiritual path, right?
Yes, there would definitely be things that would be coming up, but I don't feel that that's the purpose of an NDE.
I think there has several purposes.
Yeah, I do not. I've never seen that be necessarily written. And what I see as a psychic is you potentially write a marker in, which would be an accident or something that you would have to overcome. And that aspect of it would be kind of bonus material. It would be like, oh, within my physical consciousness, because you're aware of being very physical, I have access and or see or feel what the spiritual side is all about. So you get this wealth of knowledge quite quickly because you're in a spiritual experience. So the spiritual experience itself has so much info that you instantly get, and it's very fresh than when you come back into body, or you're better again. And because the experience is so powerful, you don't make light of it, I guess I would say. And so I'm sure that there's some people that have had NDEs that were not interested in the spiritual path, that went a whole different direction. It just seems to be that, yes, the stories that are written about them are ones that then wanted to pursue a more spiritual path or had a better observation about what was happening on a spiritual level. And so they become so convinced of what they've seen, and then they want to talk about it. They want to get into the field, teach other people what they've seen. So I think that is really wonderful, but I don't think that everybody that has one has that experience. And it comes down to, it wasn't your time to go also. So
regardless, it would probably provide a very profound perspective shift. Not saying that that's going to push you into spirituality, but there's probably something that it's either going to make you appreciate life more, or really value the time that you have here.
Oh, absolutely. I think that once you can get out of your head at all in the physical realm and really take a look at spirituality and the spiritual experience, you're going to have this profound effect. But that's also why I think that people reach for it all the time. However, they feel like they fail over and over again. But you can't be in your physical beliefs very heavily and really living that lifestyle to a T, and then have a spiritual experience. There has to be some type of balance, and that comes with developing your gifts. It comes with, you know, speaking with spirits. It comes with channeling. It comes with all of the spiritual senses, connecting in with your spiritual body. You can't be like, I'm here, I'm earthbound, and I'm going to keep my feet grounded in this, and I'm going to try to be connecting with my guides at the same time. You have to be flexible, you have to be open, and your world needs to expand in a way that with physical and with the spiritual, we coexist. And the rules that we have actually create both worlds. But you need to be able to view the physical world differently. So, for instance, a lot of us in the field, we don't view the physical world the same way other people view the physical world. And that, I think, is really kind of the key difference. Everybody who has a struggle with connecting with their spiritual body and or developing their gifts, they haven't just got there yet. And it doesn't mean they can't get there. They 100% can get there. It's just, again, proper training, proper knowledge. It's feeding the physical brain proper knowledge so that they can then break down their belief system of what the physical world is about, which has been taught to you for a very long time. Holly says, my dad did not have that experience with his NDE. It just made his faith in the other side stronger. So I guess, Holly, what you're saying too is it's not like he had a profound, I don't know, desire to be like a psychic or something. He just, the faith of there's something more. And I think a lot of people do experience that. I think that there's a lot of people that, you know, their faith that there is something more or something else is going on definitely gets, you know, I don't know, solidified. And then they still go about their 3D life. They just go about doing whatever it is that you were doing before. But probably my guess would be they'd have less fear of when it comes to dying or anybody who does die within their family or whatnot. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't feel that, I guess I would say, I don't think we should feel jealous.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I mean, like, I totally get it. I'm fascinated by all the NDE content out there and hearing people share their stories. And you hear so much of people with the, you know, they have that experience and then their gifts come back stronger. And you're like, why not me? You know, because it feels kind of like an express lane to get there. But I was like, that's not the express lane you want to go down.
No, that's not. And there is a very easy express lane. Like I said, when it goes with, it starts with your wanting to, and next should be the training. And I have told many people this. I work with a lot of healers. I work with a lot of clients who are developing their abilities. And a lot of times they'll be like, yeah, I'm unsure and I can't get there and I feel it blocked here. And I'm like, just give me an hour. Just give me an hour. We can, you know, that's a good start. Like, I can get you working through this. People just don't know where their blocks are. That's really the problem. You don't know where your blocks are. And then I feel that there's a lot that people just haven't learned. There's not a lot of really great teachers out there. And, or I've had clients that have had a lot of teachers that just didn't get the light bulb to go on. And that can be different. It's like doctors. You got to find the right fit, you know? And so Holly says, he said he saw there's a heaven, but didn't get a download of information and want to pursue spiritual studies. Yeah. He's not afraid to cross over. Yeah. So I think a lot of people have that experience as well. I think that this one's another good thing to mention, especially if there's healers. And yeah, if we have any more questions, go ahead and put them up. If not, we'll just go through what we have until we're done. Are other people in the healing profession feeling burned out, tired, and wanting to get out? I've been a massage therapist for 21 years and feeling it's time maybe a couple years past time to get out, to stop trying to help people and let them find out nobody can do all the work for them. They're the ones who have to ultimately fix themselves. We can help them, but cannot heal them. So that just goes, I feel like, I don't think it's a now thing. I feel like it's a healing profession thing. There is a level of burnout that people can get when you're in the healing profession. And if you're not careful, people don't realize everybody wants to become a healer. A lot of times, that's not true. A lot of people, not everybody, want to get into the healing field when they get very interested in their spirituality and start connecting with their spiritual body. It feels so good. The information feels amazing. It's so exciting, and it feels so different than being really congested into your physical body in a way that doesn't feel flexible or doesn't feel expansive. And so you get so excited that a lot of people are like, I want to be in the healing field, and they do something really related to that. Sometimes quickly, sometimes they'll do massage or Reiki or different things like that, because those are easy classes to take. They're very well accepted within the healing industry. The thing that you have to realize when you become a healer is, and we talk about this in the workshops, is, kind of, do you have what it takes to be a healer too? Not that she did not. She absolutely did for the time being, for sure. But sometimes if you can't get balance with your spiritual work and the type of clientele that is starting to come to you. So from what I'm reading, it seems to me that her clientele that she's been getting is more of the low vibrational frequency clientele. And when that happens to a healer, it can start to take a toll, for sure, because you're starting to see people who are not being active with their spirituality and or their health or healing, especially if you're in the healing field. And that can take quite a toll, and you just get frustrated and don't want to go down that road. And so there's different things that you can do. If you're in the healing field, you can either definitely get out, which I think that once somebody experiences burnout in the healing industry, it's good for them to take a step back and just recharge. You need to recharge your energy. You need to recharge your mental and emotional, energetic reserves, and allow yourself some time to make sure that you're being balanced and not off balance. And so that's really important. Then if you do decide to re-enter, you're going to have to kind of restructure it a little bit differently. However, I do think that there's a lot more low vibrational frequency people out there. So if you've been in the field for a while, she's probably, like a lot of others, noticing that there's an uptick in low vibrational frequency people in a way that is more in your face. This low frequency stuff right now, it's more aggressive and more in your face. And before, I think people were a lot more low key with their low vibration frequency. Now it seems trendy, or like, no, we should talk about on how unhappy we are and why and who's to blame. And it's a lot more forefront and aggressive.
Do you think, like, why do you think that is? Is it because, the world is shifting so quickly? I mean, is that part of it, where things are becoming a little bit more, raising your voice, where you're starting to notice these things?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons that they're doing it. First, social media didn't help that. We have a lot of social media that amplified things that people would normally keep filtered. So now we've trained ourselves through avenues like that to not be filtered. And we have kind of encouraged others to not be filtered. Then we have activist movements, of course, which are typically really good movements. But we also have leaders and people who, just have a huge influence on other people, kind of prompting, aggressive behavior a little bit, instead of making shifts and changes, let's get angry about it and really state our opinions and kind of push them out upon other people. So I feel like society as a whole has moved that direction, starting with social media, unhappiness of where we're at, the Earth's frequency shifting, then the frequencies kind of bandwagoning together. So like attracting like, and since the Earth is imbalanced with a lower vibrational frequency, maintaining the dominant frequency right now, as that's happening, there's more of them to kind of get each other all riled up, right? Yeah. And when you have a lot of people who are unhappy, two things are typically going to happen. We're either going to self-reflect and go, what choices did I make? How did I get here? How can I shift this? And they're going to go one direction. And we have the other train of thought, which is going to be, look at what's happening to me. Why is the world in this state? And I'm really ticked off about it. And the only way that they know how to deal with their unhappiness is to act out in that way. And so they get angry because there's not near as many content people in the world as there has been in the past. It's really bad right now. A lot of really unhappy people. And so they're trying to figure out how to navigate that. And those are really the two ways that you typically navigate unhappiness, or you just stay quiet in an unhappy place. But those are the ones that are kind of out loud in your face. And so it's causing quite a divide in frequency, you know? So I was just seeing, I don't see another question on there. Do you have any questions before we go?
Well, we were talking about solar flares before we got on.
Yes, we were talking about solar flares.
And just to circle it back around, man, we're going to have to get into a conversation sometime. I'm going to have to tell you about this crazy, I told you a little bit about a crazy dream that I had, but I didn't really go fully into it. But I felt like it had something to do with the solar flare because I feel like they're coming a little bit quicker. They're intensifying. I'm super fascinated with all things solar flares just because I had this dream that was kind of a warning, I felt like, and I feel like there's a big one coming. I don't know quite how it's going to affect everything, but I just saw, I think it was yesterday that we had an X class. It was like an X4, and just not needing to know any of the numbers. If you know anything about the Carrington event that happened in 1859, that was determined to potentially be something between an X15 to an X40. And it basically, the only power electrical grid that we had at that time was like the telegraph system. And that basically caught fire because there was so much energy that was being flooded to the earth. And so we're kind of overdue for this big solar flare again. And I'm just always like, knowing that I had this dream about this warning, I'm like, is there one coming?
Wow, way to scare everybody.
It'll be positive, I'm sure.
Way to scare the bejesus out of people. So solar flares, here's the thing. Solar flares, I do feel like affect people more energetically than they're aware of, which I find interesting. So mostly people, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, they think of solar flares more affecting electronics and electricity grids, correct? I mean,
yes, but it can, anybody with heart conditions, it will actually affect them quite a bit.
Okay. So I don't feel, when you're asking me, I was feeling for 15 to 20. I don't feel like we're going to experience anything like that in our lifetime. So anybody who's freaking out after what Michelle said, don't worry about that too much. I do feel like that they are going to increase in intensity and also, frequency. That was the other word. I do feel like that's going to happen. I feel like that we are going to adjust accordingly. Would I say it wouldn't knock out any electrical stuff. I wouldn't go so far as to say that necessarily, but all I can see when I ask for that is I'm seeing backup. So it does seem like that there's enough stuff in place for any type of power grid. And so I'm seeing that even if it did affect things, there would be something that we would handle like another type of thing. I don't work for the energy company, but like where there would be some type of backup plan. I do not feel that it would affect the whole world at one time, which I think would be more of the concern. That would be my question.
Yeah.
It would be more like parts of the world. And for some reason, as I'm looking, it does feel like it would be more lower than North America and a little bit rotated around towards another area, another part of the continent, another part of the earth. She, as in Holly, is it possible that all these flares are just a cycle? Yes. I don't think that they're going to continue in frequency forever. I do think that there's going to be a frequency coming, though, where the frequency is close together. And
yeah, I would say the sun does go in cycles. And so it hits its max, I think its peak in 2025. And so we're getting...
that's funny. You just confirm everything I say, because that's what I was going to say. I was going to say it feels like 2025, but it does feel like it goes into 2026.
I mean, that's kind of like the arc, and so it comes back down and it'll start to dip. But the other thing that I was going to say is that what people might not also realize is the effect that it has on what would you call it? Natural disasters, so earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The solar flares do have an effect on that, so that activity can become increased as well.
Hi, Grace. Way to like scare people more. What
don't you like the heads up? Like, don't you want to know what's coming?
I absolutely do not. I mean, we're going to address this. I do. This is a good conversation kind of in a sense, because I swear to God, this is why I've heard this so many times. People will say, don't you want to know what's coming with the news? So what do you mean you don't watch the news? Don't you want to know what's coming? I'm like, no, I don't. These are theories. There are theories based upon history. There are theories based upon routines. And so people will take those and then they kind of create a possible outcome and then say, okay, well, here's what's going to happen. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen as far as those go. Can they affect some of those things? Yes, I do feel like there's some possible earthquakes and disruptions and things of that nature, but we're going to be dealing with that anyways. The earth is breathing and she's shifting. And so we are not thinking about that. We're thinking of all of us who are breathing and shifting, and we're in a transitional period. But if anybody's looked at my my spiritual awakening 5-day video series, which you can get on my website just in case you want to, the earth is also reacting. It's not just us as people. We're not just the only reactive ones. And so she's going to be shifting and she's going to be moving, and it's going to cause some disruption. And then we could add in all kinds of things. We could add in the melting of icebergs and, the ocean and the weather. And we could add in a lot of stuff, not just solar flares. And then everybody's going to go get a bunker, They're just going to like hoard food and stuff. So
I promise I'm not super doomsday. I'm just fascinated by...
No, I'm just saying that that's what people do, though. That's what they've been doing. They're scared and worried, and then they go do that kind of stuff. But I don't feel like that is going to be any factor anytime soon. I think that the closest we've gotten to that, truthfully, is COVID. I think that was the closest we got to pretty much shutting down the whole world. And that, for some reason, seems less scary, I think, for people than it does a natural disaster. But yet the impact was huge, and it was great, and it was as impactful as a natural disaster that would affect the whole world. And the chances of us having a natural disaster to affect the whole world within our lifetime is not great. I mean, it's a lot. It's slim.
Yeah.
So we need to be more aware of things like that, I feel. But solar flares, yeah, they're definitely affecting a lot of things right now. But we got that into 2026, so that'll be good.
Yeah, super
That'll
fun.
be fun. Super fun. Anybody else have any questions, or do you have any questions before we wrap this Mystic Monday up?
I think I have any more questions.
Yeah, nothing left. Okay, well, thank you for joining us today, and watch for a possible another Mystic Monday when we advertise that. Feel free to leave questions below as we do continue our weekly podcast on the Empowered Empath, and we are trying to answer people's questions as we go through those weekly. So don't forget to comment below if you have any future questions. Don't forget to like and subscribe either for the next podcast. I think we have one coming out. I'm going to put it up for Thursday, I believe. So we will have another Empowered Empath podcast that's really good that will be coming out this week. And until next time, I thank you for joining us. Have the most amazing day. Aloha.
Bye, everyone.
Introducing Instagram teen accounts, a new way to keep your teens safer as they grow, like making sure they've got the right gear for riding.
Knee pads.
Check.
And helmet.
Done. See you, Dad.
New Instagram teen accounts, automatic protections for who can contact your teen and the content they can see.